I'll just slide back here, pretend like it was intentional. That's awesome.
This video is brought to you by StarCharge, the largest EV charging manufacturer in the world. They are also a provider of residential and commercial battery storage with microgrid solutions.
Welcome back to Out of Spec. So, I am not in a car, I'm not on a road, but I am in an electric vehicle with over 200 kilowatt hours of battery capacity and 500 horsepower. I'm on a boat.
I'm on a boat! I'm on a boat!
And this is the life. So this is the Arc Sport, the first wake boat to actually be built ground up or water up to be an actual EV from the get-go, built around the battery pack. So Arc is a relatively new company from about 3 years back down here in Southern California, which honestly is a great place to work on boats. And this is the Arc Sport, their new main flagship boat, kind of built after the Arc 1, which we'll talk about a little bit later. That was kind of a first proof of concept, initial small run, but this is like the first one they're gonna be selling to hopefully a lot more of the masses. So they are electrifying water enjoyment, and it's not rocket science, but they do have some sort of rocket scientists. Actually, some of the team did come from SpaceX, and there's a lot more crossover to the engineering than you might think. So we're gonna get into everything we possibly can about the Arc Sport. So here on shore, next to the Arc Sport, I have with me Mitch Lee, the co-founder of Arc and CEO, and I guess one of your mini babies that's right here next to you.
That's right. This is a pre-production unit of the Arc Sport, which is a 24-foot fully electric wake sport boat, and something that we are extremely excited to introduce to the market.
I get excited about a lot of cars, a lot of EVs, but this is like one I'm especially excited about. So before we get too far into this, I actually want to ask you, Mitch, about some of the quick background history of Arc. As a company, you've been around for about 3 years or so.
That's right.
And also, yeah, some space experience.
Yeah. A lot of our founding team were former rocket engineers or came from rocket companies. And one of the reasons that we were based in Los Angeles is because we were kind of after an extremely talent-dense team that was capable of tackling a problem as ambitious as making a fully electric and, epically powerful boat like both the Arc 1 and the Arc Sport.
Yeah, and so as the Arc 1's kind of rolling in right here, that's kind of the actual first boat. Kind of, I've heard the metaphor of like, that was kind of your Tesla Roadster. Like, yeah. Proof of concept, things work, sold a very limited quantity to some very lucky people because that's a really cool machine. But then you took some things, obviously, to this. I mean, what are some of the things you kind of learned from that project that you've integrated into this?
A lot of the technology that we developed for the Arc 1 actually does carry over to the Arc Sport. That's everything from, a lot of the controls work that we do, the over-the-air update system, some of the learnings around hull design and manufacturing techniques and how to integrate the battery pack, how to marinize the battery pack, meaning make it appropriate for a marine environment. Mm-hmm. All of those learnings carried over to the Arc Sport and allowed us to kind of deliver a more mainstream product than what the Arc 1 was.
Yeah, and your background yourself is like actually engineering, you're like actually in the weeds, or I guess the reeds, whatever.
Yes, so I have a degree in mechanical engineering, and then I, after a couple of years, spent working on helicopters actually, on a composite rotor blade.
Yep.
I pivoted over to software and spent the majority of my career in software before coming back to a blend of the two in Arc that blends kind of the software stack that I'm spent the majority of my career working on and the hardware stack that I really missed.
So on a tangential note, what do you think of electric helicopters?
Yeah, there are a lot of applications of electric vehicles that make, I would argue, even more sense than electric cars. Boats are one of them. I will not comment on electric helicopters.
A little different.
Yeah, but I really do think electric boats are one of those ideas that the more you think about it, when you talk about how quiet they are, how little maintenance they are relative to their gas counterparts, how much less expensive they are to operate, that you're not ingesting fumes when you're on them. You go through this list and you realize this is definitely the future of the marine industry. And the reason that they don't exist out on the water today is not because they're not a much better product. It's the engineering challenge of actually making them viable at a meaningful scale and doing so at a price point that is directly competitive with others on the market.
Yeah, and I guess on that note, what do you kind of have this priced at, and how does that compare to the gas?
Yeah, the ARC Sport starts at $258,000. Similar to a lot of other premium vehicles, the first ones rolling off the line will be fully packaged vehicles that have a slight premium to that. That might sound expensive, and I want to caveat that the premium wake sport industry, you could go get a gas boat today for anywhere between $200,000 and $350,000. That's just kind of where the market is at. So the ARC Sport starting at $258,000 is actually directly competitive with today's premium gas wake sport boats. And that was a huge effort on our side to bring the cost down such that you don't need to go pay an incredible premium to get a boat like this.
Not to overuse the metaphor, but not unlike Tesla with the Model S going after some of the premium sedan segment, and they were kind of directly priced.
Exactly. That's exactly right. When Tesla introduced their Model S, it was targeted at the Mercedes, not necessarily the Honda Civics.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So this is the Tesla Model S of boats, I guess. People will always make those comparisons. The Tesla killer or whatever. Now,
Yeah.
Tesla hasn't made a boat yet, but if they did, this strikes me as similar. I mean, even the screen and stuff, even especially seeing on the ARC 1, the screen layout, the steering wheel, it's like, oh, it's just like being in a Tesla. I'm familiar already.
We wanted to make something that was familiar both to wake sport enthusiasts, but also electric vehicle enthusiasts, and blend those two together into a more modern boating experience, which is what we believe we've delivered with the ARC Sport.
So let's take it out on the water.
Let's do it.
All right, so Mitch, we are finally out on the water in the ARC Sport. This is such a great place to be. It's been a while since I've been out on the water, and first thing I'm noticing, it's so quiet.
It is very quiet.
The boat's
thanks to you.
on.
It is. It's on. It's moving. And this is one of the awesome parts about having an electric boat is you can actually enjoy a conversation and enjoy your friends out here.
Yeah, I was initially going to do a walk around back at the dock, but we'll get back at the dock in a little bit. But we could do a tour of the boat while we're out on the water, partially because it's quiet.
Yeah, let's do it.
So as far as a full tour,
So
yeah.
it starts out here in the open bow seating area. Now, because of the fact that we don't have this giant engine sitting in the back of the boat, we have more space to work with on our 24-foot wake boat. One of the areas that we've invested in is giving that space back to the bow here. A lot of these open bows on wake sport boats are pretty small and cramped. This can seat many adults comfortably, as you can tell by how much space I have up here.
Yeah, and it's actually fairly comfortable. And it's adult seating. Sometimes those boats are kid seating.
Yeah, this is nice and spacious. You could have plenty of adults up here enjoying themselves in addition to everyone else sitting back there.
So what is the seating capacity?
15 adults comfortably
Yeah.
is what we quote, and that is not just a number we made up. That is, you can pack this with 15 adults.
That's super cool.
This is the bow area. You'll notice speakers throughout the boat. As we work our way back through the boat, the aisle here is offset slightly from center to make space for our entertainment screen, which is not just intended for the driver, but also for the other people on the boat. You've got our in-house software running both of these screens, the driver display and this entertainment display, with everything like from maps to music to our ballast and surf system and even cameras.
Nice. Seems like pretty good quality displays and bright enough to see out here. But we do have the canopy, which helps, which we'll talk about in a bit.
We've got our surf system, finally settings, including tower actuation.
Nice. And so I guess you can also kind of adjust different parameters. And this is, of course, early software. You're still working on it.
That's right.
Daily, I'm guessing.
Yes, yes, it is seeing improvements almost on a daily basis. And but yes, this is a configurable screen. We've also got features like cruise control here, and then again your music widget.
Do you hope to have like music kind of integrated, or is it like pretty much all Bluetooth through the phone?
It's Bluetooth through the phone,
Okay.
Which on a boat is nice and convenient because that phone also then serves as, you know, your device for changing music if you're sitting out on the back of the boat or wherever else.
That looks like so much fun. Nice.
Good background content.
Nice tri-spoke steering wheel there.
Underneath the floor where I am standing currently is the motor, which is essentially a motor that could be used to power a semi-truck because boats require a lot of power to move through water, which is a lot more viscous than air. That motor is a direct drive setup, which goes back through to a propeller shaft and a propeller under the boat, which pushes water into a rudder, and that's how you steer. This inboard setup is very common for wake boats, but what is unique is that all of this packages under the floor for us. Most wake boats have a giant engine right here. Good luck holding a conversation at 5 miles an hour, much less at 15 or 20 miles an hour. And it's set up in a V-drive orientation, so your output actually comes forward before it goes back. Again, our entire powertrain is packaged under the floor here. The battery pack sits back here. It is very intelligently located in order to optimize the wake that we're able to throw and the efficiency of this boat at various speeds.
Yeah. So the battery itself is 226 kilowatt hours?
226 kilowatt hours.
Is that like gross or usable? Like how much buffer do you have to have on this boat?
So we tend to be pretty conservative, and you'll get, that's gross, you'll get a little less usable there. You know, we trim to pretty conservative levels, but you could look at, call it 200 kilowatt hours that you're actually getting to use.
And does that buffer allow for, you know, I guess, and it's something we can talk about later, but storage of the boat and stuff, like, do you have a preferred state of charge for storage?
The answer is yes, but that is not really something that we are optimizing for today, because when you really care about that level of performance, it's when you're cycle constrained. When you're dealing with a car that you're using 360 days a year and cycling it a bunch, then you want to store it at an appropriate level to prevent battery degradation.
Yep.
On a boat where you're using it a lot less frequently, your concern about, you know, residual capacity is honestly not as severe as it is for the automotive use case. So it's not something that you need to pay as close of attention to as you would on a car.
Way fewer cycles.
Yeah.
With the motor, are you guys actually sourcing that from someone, or is that like built in-house? Like, how much of this is like in-house versus sourced in the automotive world?
So that's a great question. We build the whole in-house, and we manufacture our battery packs in-house.
Okay.
And it's really important that you do both of those together.
Yeah.
Because you need to.
Look at that.
This guy's having a great day. We build the holes in-house, and then we manufacture our battery packs in-house. And it's really important that we have control to design the entire boat around the battery packs. In the same way that electric cars weren't that compelling until somebody came along and said, we're going to actually design this from the ground up. The same is true for boats because it's such a large battery pack. However, we also want to take advantage of all the research and development dollars that have been going into the automotive industry. Companies have been spending literally billions of dollars investing in power electronics and high voltage components. We don't want to have to reinvent all of that because they have many years of experience and money spent to make sure those things are watertight and are reliable out in the field under extreme circumstances. We try to get as much of that off the shelf as we can.
Yep.
The motor is an example where we are buying that from a supplier rather than doing that in-house because that is not something that we want to go have to reinvent and
someone's already engineered it.
Exactly.
Makes sense. And that makes like 500 horsepower, so 300 something kilowatts of. Yep. So we're repositioning right now to get away from the shore. And a great point is that I've ridden a lot of wake boats over the years on lakes, and if you wanted a conversation, that's where you go to have the conversation.
Right.
We are literally sitting above where an engine would be, moving at a pace. I don't know what we're doing, but it's impressive that I can still talk.
Yeah, absolutely. And what you hear is the sound of water passing underneath the boat, not of, the roar of an engine.
Yeah. So drivetrain, motor, direct drive to the actual propeller. And there's actually like a propeller in the front too.
So in addition to the main propeller for the boat that propels us forward, we've got a bow and a stern thruster.
Okay.
And those are lateral propulsion.
Yep.
So it's not atypical on premium wake sport boats that are gas to have a stern thruster, meaning one in the back.
Yeah.
It is very atypical to have one in the front as well.
Okay.
And that gives us some extra degrees of freedom. Now, the reason most boats don't have that is because they don't necessarily have the software integration to put both of those to good use.
Yeah.
We have a team of software engineers that are integrating every aspect of this boat, and the expertise to be able to, use the bow and the stern in a coordinated fashion to move the boat sideways, or to steer in reverse, which is a common pain point for inboard wake boats, that they don't steer in reverse.
Can you do a tank turn? Is that?
Yeah, so you could spin in a circle, and if you drop somebody at low speeds and want to turn around, you definitely can.
Everyone's obsessed with that. Rivian teased it, and then they didn't do it. It's like, no, this is the boat, but you sort of have all-wheel drive, and you can do the tank turn.
Yeah.
Like, how do I relate this to cars? That's so funny.
Yeah.
And I guess on the note of the battery, the drivetrain, I guess what would you consider is like the range? Like obviously in the car world, it's very, typical to have what's the highway rated range? And you're sticking with roads. Very normal, non-viscous material.
Yes. Well, and roads also have speed limits on them. So your car, maybe you're going 70 miles an hour and you're estimating range at 70 miles an hour. A boat can do the equivalent of go 200 miles an hour on a road. And so range gets a lot harder to estimate for a boat, because the amount of power you're consuming going 5 miles an hour is drastically different than the amount of power that you're consuming going 40 miles an hour. What we try to quote is how much time can you be out on the water?
Yeah.
It's almost like, quoting the usage of how long can you use your phone.
Yeah.
You think in terms of how many hours can you actually do that. And again, it will depend on how you're using it. Typically, we guide towards 4 to 6 hours of active usage, meaning, you go out with your friends at 8 a.m., you come back at 2 p.m., and you've had a full day out on the water.
Yeah, so that's like actually cruising, but like a lot of people will go out, sit somewhere for a couple hours,
Right.
and have fun.
Yeah.
That's part of the point of a boat in some cases. Like people always ask about cars because they're like, okay, what about highway range? Because I'm doing a road trip and my intent is to get to a destination. Whereas the boat is like kind of out and back. The idea is more fun.
Exactly. Yeah, you're not, I grew up with boats my whole life. I could never tell you the range in miles of any of the boats that I've ever been on, because that's not how you think about it for this particular market, for the wake sport market.
Yeah.
What you think about is, how long am I out on the water? And okay, now it's noon, I'm exhausted, I'm coming back in.
Yeah.
Our goal is to kind of reach that iPhone moment where you stop thinking about battery. You use the boat exactly how you want to use it, exactly how you'd normally use it. You plug it in, the next morning it is fully charged and ready to go again. And you just kind of stop thinking about, oh, how much range do I have?
Yeah.
We have sized this battery pack so that for the majority of the market, the overwhelming majority of the market, that will be true.
It literally is the equivalent of like what Apple does for our Apple Watches, where it's like, it's all day battery.
Yeah.
And people are like, no, but what does that mean? It's like, well, it just averages out to be all day battery.
Exactly. And you should be able to get to the end of the night and then plug it in, and the next morning it'll be there ready and charged for you.
Makes sense. So I got distracted with the powertrain, but what, I guess back here, a lot more seating, obviously a lot more storage, and that's not unusual. A lot of boats have storage under the seats, but then we're even sitting on what would normally be engine, but is now more storage.
That's right. And so we will have this entire storage area closed out. Right now it's exposed on this pre-production unit, and storage under the seats and storage out in the bow on the side of these console areas.
Yeah, I can even show my backpack down in here. Nice. Plenty deep storage. So that's like not much of a concern, I guess.
No,
and kind of like with EVs, the equivalent is the frunk, which never really existed in a combustion car.
Yeah.
And now it's like, oh, you have a whole new area of storage.
When you can suddenly package everything under the floor, that opens up a lot of possibilities.
Yeah.
And then the other hero feature on this boat is this tower.
Yeah.
which we have put a lot of design and engineering resources into. On a lot of these boats, the tower is kind of a metal tube structure that has bolts in it, and you unscrew the bolts and it folds down every time you put it in storage or put it on a boat lift or put it on a trailer. What we've done is actually integrated this entire tower into the structure itself, so when this tower retracts, it retracts into the hull.
Yep.
And because of that, we were also able to push this to be a hardtop, which gives you a bunch of shade on the boat, but also provides really usable storage for things like boards.
Yeah.
You have storage not just down underneath here, but also on top up here.
Nice.
And then a tow point for towing wakeboarders. And
then, yeah, you mentioned we showed one camera on the front there that goes to the front. There's also a camera back here.
Yep.
And a camera back down, down there.
Yep.
More tie down points. So Mitch, as far as, you know, with cars, in some ways the EV created new benefits that we didn't even know existed. Well, obviously the front was one, but even with like handling dynamics, it's like, oh, throw all the weight at the bottom. The battery pack is kind of the, sometimes structural, sometimes not, but like the skateboard thing.
yeah,
With a actual electric boat, what are some of the things that you've seen that are like, oh, this is a whole, it's like solving a problem that gas boats created by existing.
yeah.
I mean, obviously we've talked about noise, we've talked about the extra storage capacity, but are there any other things you've kind of seen from gas boats and you're like, wow, this really unlocked something new?
So there are some very obvious ones here. Noise is a big one. We can hold a conversation while we're in motion.
Yep.
There's the reliability aspect, which is hopefully pretty obvious. It's a much bigger change between a gas boat and an electric boat compared to a gas car and an electric car. Then there's the operating cost of it, which is substantially less expensive. Gas boats get 1 to 2 miles to the gallon.
Wow.
A day out on the lake is hundreds of dollars worth of gas,
Yeah.
compared to tens of dollars to recharge this.
Yep.
And then you get things like the ownership headache is substantially reduced when you don't need to winterize the system, or, you know, an example of that is if you live in a northern climate and you're, you know, season is mostly done, it's September time frame, and you put your boat into storage, you winterize it, and then a nice day comes along in October,
Yeah.
you're out of luck. With a boat like ours, you could actually just relaunch it immediately and go enjoy that 70-degree
Yeah.
day out in the end of October. And then I'd say, like, if I were to get into like a very nuanced point here, gas boats carry weight in the form of gas.
Yeah.
And as you burn, you know, if you're wake surfing and you really care about the shape of that wake, as you are burning that gas, the weight distribution on your boat is actually changing. You are depleting weight from the boat, putting it into the atmosphere, obviously, and that shifts the profile of your wake.
Yeah.
With the battery, you're not getting that same thing. You get this consistent wake thrown, you know, the entire time you're out on the water.
Yeah. And that's why also, I guess, you can keep really good track of your state of charge, whereas a gas boat, it's moving around, the gas level's moving around, the gas meter is only so good, and so
Yeah.
people literally do run out of gas because they don't know exactly how much gas is in there. And they treat their boat like they do their car, where it's like, oh, I have a 1/16 of a tank, I can make it to the next
Right.
station.
The number of times I've been stranded on a gas boat is painful.
Yeah.
Compared to the precision that you get from, you know, having down to the decimal point level accuracy of
Yeah.
your state of charge. And then knowing that it's not a question of if you're going to be able to get back, it's just how long it'll take you.
Yeah.
Because you consume so little power at low speeds that if you get below a certain level of state of charge, we put you into a mode that the boat can only go a low speed,
Yep.
but at that speed you can go a very long distance.
Yeah.
So if you go 40 miles an hour out and then deplete all your battery, you will still be able to make it back with the remaining 5%.
I was gonna say, if you're cruising around like we were earlier, just super low speed, you could probably just go almost, I mean, not forever, but that's the figure of speeds people would use.
It's over 24 hours continuous that
That's
you can
crazy.
go at that
Yeah.
speed.
Nice. Well, it sounds like we're gonna do some actual sportsing. I'll just slide back here, pretend like it was intentional. Oh yeah. That's awesome. cruise control really comes in handy.
Yeah.
Nice. Is all your testing done out here?
Yeah, all of our testing is done in Long Beach, or there are a couple other areas.
Okay.
Some of the endurance testing that we do, we go elsewhere because the ocean conditions don't always support it.
I mean, I guess when did this project kind of start? Like, for people who don't know, how long does it take to bring a boat to life? And clearly some of it started back there, wherever the Arc 1 is.
Yeah. I want to answer this in two ways, because
Okay.
maybe there are three kind of points actually to hit here. The first is, you know, boats are not necessarily as complex as cars. You don't have the types of safety critical regulations that you do with cars in the boating industry. It's like cars are going 70 miles an hour down a highway with concrete walls on all sides. Like,
Yeah.
you need airbags, you need to go crash 50 of those before you can vet
Yeah.
one of them. Boats are not the same way.
Yeah.
They're much closer to houses in a lot of respect,
Yep.
that you follow a set guidelines for how to make it safe, but you do not need to go build 50 houses before one of them is safe.
Yep.
So we're starting out from a better spot there. Now, the flip side of that is electric vehicles are quite complex
Yep.
and really hard. And the reason that we are based in Los Angeles is because this is where, like, this is a mecca for hardware talent.
Yeah.
For people that understand high voltage electrical systems, for people that understand structural engineering and how to design a performant structure that is strong but lightweight.
Yep.
You know, there's lore around us starting with a team of rocket engineers,
Yeah.
and that comes from the fact that rockets are actually themselves pressure vessels
Yeah.
that need to be strong and light and hold pressure.
Yeah.
And the same thing can be said about a boat. Having said all of that, we went from zero, you know, first engineer staffed on the Arc Sport to, we'll be nearing customer deliveries later this year, call it 18 months.
Yep.
That is unheard of for any sort of electric vehicle company
Yep.
to go from zero to first delivery. And that's a testament to our team. We certainly benefit from being in the marine industry and some of the inherent advantages we have to bringing a vehicle to market. But it comes back to the quality, the talent density, the drive, the motivation of our team in Los Angeles.
Yeah. That's fantastic. This is such a good way to spend a day. And the fact that you can on one charge.
It's not the worst job.
It's not the worst job. And even just looking around, I mean, I was just on the Arc 1 for a second getting some shots of this, and it's cool to see that you didn't lose the cup holder space. I mean, how many cup holders are on this thing? Like
16 on the production boat, yeah.
That's fantastic. And I guess you said the sound system jail audio. Do you know how many watts that is? Like, what's the plan on that for?
That's a good question. I don't know, Robert, if you know the answer there.
I also don't know what wattage is good for boats on speakers. Like, I do love nerding out over car audio systems, but like boats is a whole new segment.
We have 10 speakers and a subwoofer. Subwoofer is 10 inches.
Nice.
The speakers are driven by 50 watts each, and then the tower speakers are 100 and the sub is 300.
Okay.
Yeah.
One thing that we benefit from is on boats, you're used to seeing these massive sound systems.
Yeah.
Because they have to compensate for this white noise that is engine.
Right.
That, you know, is at 80 decibels or 90 decibels. On a boat like this, you don't necessarily need that same power to deliver the same volume of music to people's ears.
Yeah. Yeah, so 10 speakers and a sub, that's plenty great.
Yeah.
Okay, so Mitch, one of the cool, unique factors of this boat, not that we have a shortage of that, but like this tower, so I have a convertible at home with a retractable hardtop, and that's just one of the best things. And this is the boat version of that, more or less.
Yes. This is a feat of engineering here. It took some of our best engineers working, putting a lot of effort into it to make this work. But what you get is an incredible experience here. This tower vertically lowers and retracts into the hull itself.
Yeah.
Which means instead of having a tower that you have to fold over and take up space, you know, when you go put it in storage at a boat lift or put it on a trailer, what you actually do is get to close out the cabin itself. And the net result is a usable space in inclement weather when it's windy or cold out or it's even raining, that you have a protected cabin in here for the driver and the passengers up here.
Yeah.
As well as an adjustable tow point for somebody that's wakeboarding or water skiing. And then the hardtop itself provides board storage both on the bottom and the top.
Yeah.
This hardtop tower is atypical. Most boats have canvas tops, if anything.
Yep.
So something we are really proud of on this boat, really excited about to give to customers, because you can see there's still, great headroom in here.
Yeah, you're not compromised at all. You're not squishing yourself in here.
Yeah, and if it's raining, it feels a lot nicer in here than it does on most boats.
Feels cozy. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I know we in between clips we mentioned this, but like you guys have JL Audio come and actually tune the sound system to really make it optimized for the, you didn't just buy JL speakers and throw it in here.
No, they've been fantastic partners, and people that we're excited to work with. They come in and give us tips on speaker placement and on tuning their speakers to make sure that we're delivering the best sound quality possible.
Do they go as hardcore as a different tune for top, up, and down? Some convertibles do that, and it kind of actually annoys me because like I want to tune it myself, but I also understand the acoustic variance is completely different top, up, and down.
We don't do that yet, but we do have, features like speed adjusted volume.
Oh,
so that as you start accelerating, the wind noise picks up, the music volume automatically adjusts for you.
Yeah, that's so cool. And it's got to be kind of refreshing to be in charge of your own software stack, and as you do things with the boat. And I guess I'm assuming like over-the-air updates would be a possibility.
Yes, so we do a tremendous amount of the software in-house, substantially all of it.
Yep.
That includes not just the touchscreen software, but the controls that are actually powering the boat itself, and then the telemetry system, which is something that you might be familiar with in the automotive industry, but is unheard of in the boating industry, where the abilities that we have, first, we're streaming tens of thousands of data points a second, monitoring the safety, monitoring for any issues on this boat, both locally and remotely. And then we have the ability to update this boat over the air. And those updates are not just limited to what is the screen, what is shown on the display, but it's everything from how does the throttle behave to how does the surf system actuate, and how does the cooling system work, and the cruise control. Like, you can update almost anything on this boat over the air. Yeah. And we do regularly.
Yeah. And how is it like to drive? Like, is there a huge difference in feel compared to a gas boat, other than obviously the instant acceleration?
The instant acceleration is something that lights up a lot of people's faces when they drive for the first time. The other one is the weight of this boat, which is in part driven by the battery pack, make it a more stable ride. Yeah. So, cutting through waves feels a lot smoother than you'd imagine on, a lighter dry weight boat.
And is this a bit heavier? This is like something like 6,900 pounds?
Yeah, so this is 6,900 pounds.
Yeah.
Most boats range in the, call it 5,000 to 7,000 pound range. We're at the upper end of that because of the battery.
Yeah.
But again, that provides a smoother ride and allows us to throw a pretty substantial wake.
Yeah, unlike a car, it's like weight is maybe not necessarily a bad thing.
It also gives you that stability. If you've ever been on like a really light rowboat and you kind of step one side or the other, that's because of how light it is.
Yeah.
This gives you that stability out on the water.
Nice. All right, we made it back to shore. And I guess an obvious thing to do is plugging in.
That's right.
One thing we could talk about even is shore power. I mean, a lot of people's first question is, how is the infrastructure going to handle electric boats?
So we start out with a really nice advantage in that a lot of these marinas and docks and places on the water are already wired for power.
Yeah.
Because it's not just electric boats that use electricity, it's even gas boats like this one that you see plugged into shore power here.
Yeah.
Use it for things like hoteling loads, which are bilge pumps or refrigerators if you're on a big enough boat, that run off of 240 volt power. What that means is that you can come back after an outing like the one that we just had, plug into shore power, plug it in, leave, and come back the next morning knowing that your boat's going to be fully charged.
Yeah.
Which is a substantially better experience than the analog here in the gas world, where you've got to lug gas cans down to the dock or pay $10 to go to a marina and fill up and wait in line to do that.
I mean, it's the same refreshing thing of not, when I drive the EVs, charge at home, and then I go have a gas car that's out of gas.
Yeah.
It's suddenly the world's biggest inconvenience. He's like,
Yes.
okay, I have to go factor in a gas station, which sure, they're everywhere. But on the other hand, well, especially at Costco, there's lines. And it's like,
Yeah, and if you think about it, cars, you want to be able to hop in and go anywhere.
Yeah.
And you've got road trips, and so you really need to plan around DC fast charging and your ability to get a lot of battery in a short amount of time. With boats, most boats end up at the same place they start every day. And that means you're not worried about making road trips or needing DC fast charging infrastructure in order to support what you want to do with it, which is go spend 4-6 hours out on the water, bring it back, plug it in, and again, you're ready to go the next day.
yeah, probably not even using your whole battery. But
Yeah.
I guess obviously level 2 charging, probably, I don't know, 6-7 kilowatts, or is that kind of dependent on shore power load?
Yeah, it's actually 11 kilowatts and
Okay.
mostly limited. It's limited by some combination of shore power or your onboard charger.
Yeah, and what I guess your onboard charger and your whole voltage system, is this like a 400 volt or 800 volt? That's what we
800
usually
volt
see.
system.
Okay, 800 volt system.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So that has some really great advantages when it comes to putting out the amount of power
Yeah.
that we want in terms of the thermal regulation of that system.
Yeah, and then clearly DC fast charging as well.
Yep.
CCS port. And so if you do have that infrastructure, I mean, what is your like rated highest charging speed? And do you know what the charging curve would look like?
Yeah, call it something on the order of 250 kilowatts
Okay.
that we'd be able to charge at.
Yep.
Which means that you could, in theory, charge this in sub an hour.
Yeah.
Now, the reality is when you get into those edge regions,
Yep.
that first 10%, the last 10% tend to take longer. But that's something that's possible.
Yeah, I mean, just like a car, you're not usually pulling in with, well, I guess the way we road trip, we pull in with like 1%.
Yeah.
Statistically speaking, probably not likely with a boat. And
Yeah.
so it is.
Yeah, I mean, we went out for, an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And I think we used 8% battery. We
Jeez.
were not starting at a full.
Yeah. So it really would last just a long time.
Yeah. And I mean, we weren't out there. I mean, we were going fast. We
Yep.
were wake surfing.
Ripping it, having some fun.
Yeah.
And as far as like another thing people ask is, the safety surrounding things. Like the default response is, wait, you're mixing water with electricity? What are you
Yeah.
thinking?
Yeah.
And so you alluded to it earlier, but like, what does the actual safety systems look like? Like, how is this battery? Obviously, car batteries are already supposed to be safe from water. You're driving through rain and stuff, puddles.
Yep.
But like, what is the safety mechanism looking like on this boat?
So you already alluded to it. We borrow a lot from the automotive industry. Cars are already figured out how to make batteries safe when driving through, giant puddles, when getting rained on, when going through a car wash. We use a lot of that same technology. And then the other part of this is that the marine industry is, as you can tell by shore power, no stranger to electricity and water. A lot of these boats already have higher voltage systems on board. So we take those two technologies and combine them into ours to make sure that this boat is safe. That starts with a watertight, airtight battery.
Yep.
And layers on many levels of redundancy from there, many levels of sensors to ensure that you would have to actively try to have any sort of issue related to water and electricity.
Yeah, makes sense. That's so cool. So that's kind of a first initial look with the Arc Sport, a boat I actually very much wish I could spend more time with while I'm out here, and probably will spend more time with in the future because it's too special not to. I'd love to cover it in other waters as well, and hopefully see it kind of around the country. I mean, there's a lot of bodies of water that could benefit from these, and just as part of the cleaning up of everything, I don't know why I put that in quotes, because we're literally cleaning up. People are trying to convert the automotive industry in general to electric to really help clean the air. LA, sometimes the air is a problem, and it is amazing to see how inefficient gas boats are. I mean, you use the figure of like 1 to 2 miles per gallon.
Yeah.
Like if cars were doing that, like we lose our minds. And
Yeah.
maybe some cars are, but
And it's not just the pollution in the air, it's also the pollution into the water, which
Yes,
is
true.
gas boats are pretty notorious for, that they exhaust directly into the water rather than into the air, and
Exactly.
leave oil slicks behind them, gas spills
Ugh.
behind them,
And it
fueling
looks-
at docks. The marinas there are
looks
pretty
terrible.
disgusting.
So I wonder how much cleaner like a marina like this would look if everything was electric. I think this is a pretty interesting start. And I'd love to hear what you guys think of the ARC Sport and just ARC in general, electric boats in general. That's something I'd really love to cover more, cover some of the infrastructure. I mean, at some point, bucket list item for me personally, get this thing like DC fast charging, and like for
Yeah.
all of our super nerd audience, like let's see how the charging performance is, and just picturing this plugged into a DC fast charger is kind of cool.
We'll be doing a demo tour starting, actually, I think when this video goes live, and
Nice.
we'll be going to some of the most popular boating spots across the country, and that includes Lake Tahoe, where there is DC fast
Cool.
charging, and we'd love to have you out and show you us DC fast
I
charging.
will have to see you out there. So really appreciate your time.
Absolutely.
Great job with the project, and we'll see you soon.
Sounds good.